Neutral shoes versus stability shoes in 2026. What's the difference and which one's right for you? The lines between traditional categories are being blurred. Neutral shoes are getting more stable and stability shoes are getting more bouncy and more fun to run in. So what are the actual differences and how do you know which one's right for you? Well, there's probably no better examples than the options from New Balance, the 1080 on the neutral side and the 860 on the stability side. Both are daily trainers designed for easy and long runs. Both have the same 6mm drop and 40mm stack height in the heel, but the 1080 is marketed as a neutral shoe, whilst the 860 is marketed as a stability shoe. How do they actually differ? Well, the 1080 is relatively simple. It has a single piece of New Balance's latest foam called Infineon making up the midsole, and it's got a really soft and bouncy feel to it, which makes it a very versatile shoe, covering those daily miles up to those slightly quicker tempo efforts. And that softness feels great to run in, but soft foams don't usually lend themselves to being particularly laterally stable. To help with this, New Balance have made the base really wide, as well as putting a bit more foam under the arch of the foot, both of which results in this being relatively stable for something advertised as a neutral shoe. On the other hand, the 860 version 15 is billed as New Balance's most stable running shoe, and whilst it's got the same wide platform as the 1080, there's a bit more tech going on here. They're using what's called a dual density midsole. That means there's two different foams under your foot. The Fresh Foam X top layer means it's still a very cushioned, comfortable ride, whilst the slightly firmer bottom layer of foam, which runs a full length on the medial side, helps to reduce excessive inward roll of the foot. That bottom layer also wraps up either side of the heel to guide heel strikers towards their center line, and there's a thin plastic interlayer between the two foams, which helps with resistance to twisting motions and to further stabilize the gait. New Balance call this setup the stability plane. So which should you choose? That's a harder question to answer. They're both cushioned, but the 1080 feels a bit softer and a bit bouncier underfoot, and they're both stable, but the 860 is going to look after you a bit more in that regard. The labels are helpful to a point, but calling something a neutral shoe or a stability shoe doesn't tell the full story, and sometimes means people put shoes in a bit of a pigeonhole. Each individual model is actually as individual as the runners themselves, so just because you needed or wanted stability from your shoe in the past doesn't necessarily mean you should completely write off all neutral options, or just because you don't necessarily need a traditional stability shoe doesn't mean you wouldn't enjoy or shouldn't wear a shoe marketed as a neutral option. The 1080 is going to suit someone that prefers that more energetic feeling and wants a lighter or more flexible shoe, or someone that only wants a very mild level of lateral stability control. The 860 is going to suit somebody looking for a more protective feeling that gently guides you to a more stable position, while still being a genuinely fun shoe to run in. These shoes might officially be on opposite ends of the spectrum, but there's more crossover than you might think, and ultimately it's going to come down to your individual preferences, gait, injury and training history. So as always, we recommend you head to one of our stores, chat to one of our members of staff and give them both a try and see which you prefer. Do you normally run in neutral or stability shoes? We really want to know which shoes you're finding break out of those traditional brackets, so let us know in the comments down below. Personally, I tend to run in a mix of both depending on what sort of feel I'm looking for in any given run, but my house is already getting a bit full of shoes, so I'm going to try and make a decision between them, which means I'm probably going to have to go for another run.